Good morning, everybody.
Hey, good morning, bud.
How you doing this morning, Jake?
Good, man. My kid's last day of school. Summer's going to begin tomorrow. House is going to get loud. I don't know how we're going to do a podcast, But yeah, no, we're doing good.
Lots of fun. Adapt and overcome, right?
For sure. So
I want to welcome Scott Mann with us today. Good morning, Scott.
Hey guys, what's going on?
This is our, episode number? Is it 63 of the Coffee Squad podcast? We were kind of doing a Memorial Day special here, and who better than to have Scott Mann and talk about his film Last Out. And we'll get into that a little bit. But I think it's a good subject to talk about on Memorial Day for our Memorial Day special. Yeah. So, Jake, since you guys share the same headgear, do you want to go ahead and introduce him?
Yeah, for sure. So a little bit about Scott. Scott Mann is a retired Light Colonel, Green Beret, with multiple combat tours to Iraq and Afghanistan. He's the president of Rooftop Leadership, which is a leadership consulting and training company. He's a co-founder of Hero's Journey, a nonprofit dedicated to helping veterans and military families find their voice and tell their story as they transition out of the military service. We're going to definitely talk about that a little bit today, too, because I think that's really important. We're going to talk about he's a playwright and actor for his award-winning play Last Out, which is an elegy of a Green Beret. And he's bringing that to a major film. He's actually doing a release, and he'll talk about that here this weekend. And then Last Out, just for our viewers out there, it's a white knuckle ride, and it's the true story about the cost of war told by warriors who lived it, who went and did it. So the cast and crew are made up entirely of veterans and military family members. And Last Out goes beyond the Hollywood depictions of soldiers as superhuman door kickers or mentally broken victims. And it tells the untold story of war and what the true costs are on the warriors and their families. So excited to have Scott on, talk to us a little bit about why, how he came up with Last Out, why he wrote it, and get into all the details, and just honor Memorial Day and why we have it. So couldn't think of a better guest to have on. So thanks, Scott, for joining us. Anything I missed about you?
No, man, I'm sitting here getting squeamish already, but I just appreciate you giving me the opportunity to come on and be with you guys on this Memorial Day episode. That it really means a lot.
And it kind of was a happy accident, I guess, because I didn't realize that you were actually doing the live stream hosting of Last Out on Memorial Day weekend. So that really coincided well for us. So thanks again.
Yeah, man, for sure.
Yeah, it's crazy. The Green Beret, we call it the GB or SF circle, how small it is. It was actually a buddy of mine who linked us all up, and then talking to other buddies, the similarities and the same people that we know. So
it really is. It really is. We did the play in Fort Bragg a couple of years ago, and there were so many SF guys in the audience. I was more nervous there than when we did it in New York.
So let's talk about that real quick. And Scott, our listeners and viewers know, like, I'm severe ADHD.
Here's turn number one.
So as a Green Beret, writing this playwright and this movie now that's coming out, like, when you said how nervous you were with a bunch of GBs being in the audience, I can understand that. There's probably nothing worse than a Green Beret telling the story from their perspective of war and the cost of war, not only on themselves and their teammates, but their family. And so, like, the nerves, like, if you could just kind of talk about that experience, I guess.
Yeah, it was like the ultimate midlife crisis, man. I have to tell you, it was the ultimate midlife crisis. Is learning how to write a play and act, because I had never done that before. I had never done anything like that, and the reason was very simple. I was already a speaker and a trainer, and so I was on stages, and I loved storytelling. And frankly, my transition had been really crappy, and it was storytelling that actually kind of pulled me out of a point where I was ready to take my own life. It was, geez. It was learning how to act was probably one of the second most scary things I've ever done, next to going into combat. But my thing was, Jake, it seemed like the story of what our Green Berets and frankly all warriors and military families go through, it just wasn't portrayed. You know, the Hollywood versions of it always show us like as these superhuman dudes, which a lot of the Green Berets and Warriors I served with seemed that way, but there was another side to them, you know, that just wasn't portrayed. And then, of course, the family side. So I just wanted to try to do something that would tell that story to a population of Americans who, frankly, mostly didn't even know we were at war, it seemed like.
Yeah. Yeah. So how did you like go from an officer Green Beret to like, okay, I'm going to write a play? I know they teach you acting in the Alpha course. But
well done. Well done.
But how do they how did you make that transition? You know, because to me, I wouldn't even think about that.
No.
Nor do I have the skill set for any of that. So, like, what kind of I know I'm so like I just took your whole little outline and like flushed it and threw it out the window. But I'm just like, how did you come up with that?
So,
or what led you to it?
Yeah, I was already into storytelling. I was using. I found that storytelling was a way to heal. You know, societies around the world have been using storytelling to reintegrate warriors since we had tribes. You know, our country just happens to be one of those few that doesn't really do that. We come home, we bottle it up, it's done. That's it. You don't talk about it. But I had already started exploring storytelling as a powerful way to reconnect and to heal for myself. And with my family, and our nonprofit was starting to use this with our regiment, Jake, and in small numbers, but it was powerful. And my mentor is a former NFL football player, a guy named Bo Eason. He was voted the dirtiest player in the NFL back in the 80s when he played free safety for the Oilers. His brother was Tony Eason, played for the Patriots. Anyway, this dude was a football player, blew his knee out, became an actor, and wrote a one-person show that went off Broadway, and it was all about his crazy journey into the NFL as a runt kid growing up on a ranch. So he was mentoring me, and he's like, you know, Scott, you should really think about, you know, you love storytelling. You should write a play, just a one-person show. It'll heal you, man. So I was just kind of doing it as therapy, just as a way to kind of process the war. And just as I looked around the country, it seemed like people didn't even know what our men and women were doing. You know, at that time, we were like 15 years into the war. And then I got asked to do one scene at a local theater around the silly band that my son Caden gave me when he was a little boy. He called it the Magic Silly Band, and it was part of the play. And so I got up on stage and I just did that little like 4 minutes, and it just brought the house down, and people were like really moved by it. And my character was a composite character of 3 team sergeants that didn't come home. One of them, Tom Mahalik. And I think it was the fact that it was an NCO and just like that story that had just not been heard. My wife looked at each other and we're like, I think that's a play. And so we just kept going with it. It took 2 years to write it, a year to put it on its feet, a year to learn how to act, and you know, another year to tour. So it's been a long patrol. But I never saw it coming, Jake, ever. That's probably a really crappy answer, but like it just happened.
No, I mean, look, I'd rather get shot at than get on stage. I mean, I've done interviews on ESPN and some other places, and quite honestly, I would much rather get shot at than get in front of a camera and get my ugly mug out there and then try to portray something that's near and dear to my heart too. I think I would probably have a breakdown on stage. So kudos to you, man.
My acting coach, I'll share this real quick and I'll throw it back. But when I started, I had to learn how to act. So I flew to New York every month quietly. I didn't tell anybody. And I studied under Larry Moss and Carl Bury because, you know, the SF way, right? You find the guys that know how to do it and you go train with them. And they were so intrigued by the novelty of this dude that had no clue about acting and the opportunity to train. They took me under their wing. And basically one of the first things they said to me was, look, reading this script, you want to inform civilians on what it feels like to go to war with Green Berets, and what it feels like to be a family member that goes through that for 15 years. You're going to have to take all this armor off that you normally wear, all of it's coming off, and you're going to have to show everybody on stage what that Green Beret is going through inside. And I was like, oh crap. Like and that's when it got real.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I think that'd be the hardest part, was to kind of show your vulnerability, especially to however many people are out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's probably healing at the same time.
It was, man. The community was so supportive. Like, I cannot tell you, the first time I did it, and a couple of SF guys, and there were some unit guys in there, they came up, man. They were like tears in their eyes. And you know what they said to me? They said, "That's my story, man. Thank you for telling my story." And some of them weren't SF. I mean, it was, this is universal stuff. Like, and that's when I knew right there. And then right behind them was a Gold Star mom, and she came up and she said, "Thank you for telling my boy's story. Everybody just walks around on eggshells with me. They don't talk to me. They don't say my son's name. And I want his name said. I want him to be remembered. I want his story told, because if his story's told, when your story's told, then I have new memories of my son. And that's the one thing I don't have anymore, are new memories." And, it just like, dang, and from there, that was when we looked at each other and we knew we had something. And it started to go. We said, we're going to take it on tour, and that began the ride.
Awesome. I think, so Will was in the 82nd. Everyone knows about you now and what I did. But as we're all in the military, I think as we get ready for Memorial Day weekend, it's a special weekend to us. As a kid, I didn't understand it.
Yeah.
I always thought, okay, hey, when I got older, it's like go to the beach and barbecue and hang out. And, you remember, and like, to me, it was almost like Veterans Day, and so, I don't get upset with people. It just shows ignorance when people are like, "Hey, happy Memorial Day." I'm like, that's a weird use of a phrase right there. But I just think our country doesn't understand, unless you've been there and walked in those shoes with a lot of things in life, but understand the understanding of Memorial Day. And I think it's good for us, like you said, Scott, for that Gold Star mother and the family members out there to never forget, don't forget those names. And I think this is a good time, to talk about like what Memorial Day weekend is for us, and kind of reflect on, a story of someone, that in our life. So Will, why don't you kick it off, man?
All right. Well, I mean, my whole family's pretty much been in the military. My dad was in Vietnam in the Air Force. My uncle was in the Marines. My grandfather was in the Navy. So now I'm in the Army, or I was in the Army. So we kind of got all the branches with the exception of Coast Guard covered. But one thing I know I want to remember is my dad's really good friend and roommate over in Vietnam. He was KIA on May 13th of 1975. His name was Bob W. Ford. He's from Texas. He was with the 56th Security Police Squadron, the U.S. Air Force. I don't know if you guys know what they did back in Vietnam, but they went through Ranger training. They did all the SF type stuff for the Air Force in Vietnam. So those guys were pretty cool. And he died in a helicopter, depending on which report you read. The official story is that the rotor failures, but people on the scene said they saw Sam. So it's kind of, up in the air what really happened, but that's kind of who I want to kind of remember, because he had a very, very big impact on my father's life, which in turn, impacted my life. So Jake, what about you?
So unlike you, most of my family, except for my two grandfathers who served in World War II, didn't serve after that. So I was the first grandkid to serve on both sides. And then I have a cousin who served in the Army as well. And I grew up, I guess the military, I loved it. I was that kid who read World War II stories, Vietnam War stories, Korea War. I was just always enthralled with it. And I didn't join until I was 26. So it was a lot later in life. And I remember asking my grandfather, who just recently passed away about a month ago, was 100 years World War II vet in the Pacific, trying to, like, as a kid, pull stories out of him. And he never talked about it. And he did talk about it until after I came back for my first trip to Afghanistan. It was very, very little. And I remember having a conversation with him of kind of like the anger, right? Of like, hey, how do you trust? We're going over the Middle East. How do you trust these people now? Because they don't wear uniforms. They don't, you don't know who to trust when you're over there. I asked him, about the Japanese and being in the Pacific, and he said it takes time, and they're not all bad. And I remember thinking that, and I went on another trip, and it was a pretty rough trip, and we had our interpreters, for us on the soft side, most of them are absolutely phenomenal. And to me, I always say, look, our interpreters have done for America the most Americans have ever done. Our interpreters have gone into compounds when an SF guy's been shot up, pulled them out, ran in, pulled us out of the way. I mean, they are literally our right hand out there. Probably, I would say one of our most important pieces of equipment that we have. And so that kind of changed for me. And then, every Memorial Day, I have pictures of, close teammates and friends. I went through the Q course with or other stuff. So, I think of Jesse Clowers, Mark Small, Tico, Danny Lee, Zach Bannister, John Pelham, Mark McCowan, and I could probably have another list of 10, 15 names of just friends and teammates, and brothers that paid the ultimate sacrifice. And for me, Memorial Day, I don't like getting sad anymore. Yeah. And I'll tell a quick story. Danny Lee was a teammate of mine. He was killed in January of 2014. And as we flew into Bagram Airfield to do his memorial service, Tico, who was on the B team at the time, he had some messed up ankles. We're all getting ready to sit down for the memorial service. We were pissed off. We were pissed off with leadership because I shouldn't say I was pissed off with the leadership because they denied airstrikes, and we blamed them for probably an uncontrolled situation. And we kind of had our heads down low. And Tico comes up to me and is like, "Hey, dude, I'm not going to say the exact words, but get your head up, but a little bit more colorful than that. Get your head up. Danny died a warrior. Give him the honor and the praise of a warrior's death." Fast forward 3.5 weeks later, Tico was killed in the green on blue. And I volunteered to go on that deployment. I came back a mess. I nearly threw my marriage away. We were newly married. So when I volunteered, my wife was pissed, scared, terrified, because she thought I was going to come home a mess again. And I just remember that moment when Tico was killed and getting ready to load his body on the helicopter. We had a chaplain come out a few weeks before and talk to us about gratitude. And I just remember kneeling down as we had his body in the body bag and getting ready to load him. I thank God for getting to know him and the lessons and the friend that he was, and having that gratitude. And that to me changed everything. And so to me, it's ironic where Tico told us to get our heads up and give him a warrior's death. And that's what I think about Memorial Day. My buddies were warriors. I look back like I don't want to die an old fat slob of a heart attack or a stroke. Dying over there for my country, to me, is the ultimate honor. And so we always say, tell Valhalla. And that's where I believe my buddies are. They died a warrior's death, and I celebrate them and their families. Yeah. So what about you, Scott?
No, it's amazing stories, guys. When my boys were young and I was on active duty, I wanted them to know what Memorial Day was, because it felt like so many Americans didn't. And so I have 3 boys. One of them now is an infantry officer. And we would always go out in the front yard, and they would raise the flag every morning, and they would lower the flag every evening. And they learned how to do that. They would fold it, and they were pretty good. But on Memorial Day, I would tell them a story of one of my friends who I served with who fell. And I would just tell them a story, sometimes it was around their death, and sometimes it was around just something about them. And because I wanted them to, like you said, Jake, I wanted them to associate Memorial Day, not in a sad way, but in a reverent, story-based way, because I felt like every one of my buddies who fell, whenever they did talk about something like that, it was always like, you effers better not be sitting around feeling bad about me, man. Like, y'all better be throwing one back, And so anyway, I guess the guy I'm thinking about today is Charlie Robinson. He was a captain in 1-7. He was just an amazing kid. His parents were missionaries. Just one of the sweetest guys I knew, but he was also an amazing warrior. His team was operating in Eastern Afghanistan, and they were opening a new fire base out there that was really in rough country. And I happened to be in Bagram, on my way back down to Kandahar for a big mission we were running not far from where you worked on one of your deployments up at Anaconda, Jake. And we were going up to Cobra. So anyway, Charlie was trying to talk to me, about this new base. And I was in a hurry, because officers we're in a hurry, right? So I was in a hurry, and I just like, yeah, Charlie, let's catch up, man. And he was like, yeah, okay, sir. And that was the last time I saw him, man. That's the last time I saw him, and he was killed the next day, driving back to his fire base along with two of his teammates. And I never forgot that for a whole host of reasons. But one of them was, was Charlie. Every time I think about him, he reminds me to slow down, and he reminds me to really, really take in, just the value of friendships with warriors and amazing folks. And the other thing I point out is his wife, Laura. She went to all the funerals on the team first before she buried her husband, because she said that's what Charlie would have wanted her to do. And I think sometimes at Memorial Day, it's easy to forget our Gold Stars and what they're going through. And, you said the words "until Valhalla," Jake. Valhalla is a big part of our film, our play. It is all about Valhalla and letting go, letting go of that pain, and really giving them that warrior's death, and finding our own path where we never forget, but we're able to let go ourselves. And so, yeah, I appreciate you guys doing this. This was actually really cool, and it was nice to think about Charlie.
Well, thank you for sharing. Yeah, I know, a lot of civilians, they all think it's just a 3-day weekend with a barbecue, but I know me and all my buddies, we always get together and we start sharing stories, and we talk about how it's a good day to remember, but it's also a good day to celebrate. And that's what I kind of think Memorial Day is more of a celebration of their life that they gave for this country, and for us to continue to live the life that we want.
And I would tell, it's we celebrate here in the U.S. and we have, listeners all around the globe. But, if your country has ever been in war, which most have, or a family member, think about them. It doesn't just have to be a U.S. holiday. Think about the price. For me, the cost of freedom. It's a heavy price. And I look back at my military career, and I absolutely love it. It was the best decision that I ever did in my life. And people, well, what about, your buddies that were falling, I'm missing a leg? I would do it all over again and then some, because the people that you meet. At first, I think you join the military. At least I joined the military to serve my country. And I think after that first round goes by, it's not so much about serving your country, but it's about your brothers to your left and right. Yeah, and just say it, pick a soldier's name, say it out loud. And maybe you do a little research and find out about them. So,
so I think this is a good transition into asking Scott on how he hopes this film will kind of impact the people that are watching it.
Yeah, thanks, Will. You guys have already said so much. I mean, like the stuff you guys have already covered about, a warrior's death and how we show up right in those moments, and how we honor those that are left behind. I think so. When I think about where we go from here with our film and with this story, what we wanted to do was, we're 20 years into the longest war in our nation's history, but yet most Americans have no clue what our men and women and their families are doing in modern war. They have no clue. And it's easy to get mad. It's easy to look at them and go, man, you guys don't get it. You don't understand. And I spent a lot of my life doing that when I got out of the Army. And I just kind of like, Jake, I got to the point, like, you know what? I'm tired of being angry all the time. Like, I just, what if we could actually tell a story that helped Americans understand at an emotional gut level? Tim O'Brien in his book, The Things They Carried, he said, war stories make the stomach believe. And so what if we could make the stomach believe? What if I could put American civilians in a room and they feel what it's like to see a spouse receive a flag, or they see Danny hold his best buddy in his arms in his final moments? Then could we not start to move forward from that place? So our hope with the play, and we went to 16 cities around the country, and now with the film coming out at Memorial Day, is that we can do that we can inform civilians on the cost of war, that we can validate to our veterans and our warriors and their families that they did great work, and that we can heal these Gold Star families and our warriors who lost people by using story to heal. And that's really what we want to try to do this Memorial Day, is just focus on our Gold Stars and our warriors who lost people.
I think it's awesome. The Gold Star families, right? Just what an amazing group of people. I can tell you of some that, my best friend, Mark Small, was on his first deployment. His dad is a retired Green Beret, also in 7th group. And I tried bringing Mark over in the 7th group. He said he didn't want chance fate, believe it or not. But his family, his fiance was a speech therapist, and they started a nonprofit called Small Steps in Speech, to give little kids who had speech issues a chance. And they've given out over $1 million in scholarships and funding. And that, to me, where these families take, and a lot of families do this, they take this tragedy and they turn it into something so positive. The Stephen Duskin, there's a million foundations out there of Gold Star families that have really, really just done amazing things. And I think that's another great story out there.
I agree, Jake. And you bring up a great point, which is I did a TED talk about the play. And I called the talk "The Generosity of Scars." And one of the things that I think is really good news for us as veterans, because you said this thing that really resonated with me, is like, I don't want to die this old fat guy with a stroke or a heart attack. And I think, there's a lot of resonance in that, because I feel like as we come out of the military, most of us are very high performing people. We played at the highest level. We operated at the highest level. And our sense of purpose was fully attuned and aligned with how we navigated the arena. And then all of a sudden you're out and you're looking around at like this transactional society that's all about the individual. It's all about credit. It's all about achievement, and you don't fit. It's like you've literally changed planets. Yeah. And I think one of the good news pieces about our population is, man, I am looking at the number of like 501c3s and just good work that's being done by veterans and military families. And it's like, holy cow, man. With our play, we went on tour. We had no money. We had zero money. Like, not only did I'd never acted, but we have a touring company that's comprised of Gold Star families, Purple Heart recipients, and veterans. And that's it. None of us had ever toured, but we ended up going to 16 cities. We had 5,000 people. We performed in gymnasiums and cafeterias, and then all these beautiful theaters. And we traveled with our own mental health professionals. We traveled with our own trauma interventionists. We did 250 PTS interventions on the road, in lobbies, in adjacent rooms. We had Vietnam veterans stand up at the end of the show and welcome them home, in front of their community, and some of them in tears, like saying that's never happened. We brought Gold Stars up on stage. And I think the thing I'm going at here is that, like, we didn't have any budget. We didn't have any special training. We just kind of saw something that needed to be done. And we just took what we learned as warriors and family members, and we just filled the gap. And I think that's what this whole journey's been for us. And I think it's what the country needs right now, frankly, from a lot of us.
The Vietnam vets, that's a subject kind of near and dear to my heart. I, like you said, and like, I would say like 2013, 12, 13-ish, my attitude started changing. Like, why the hell, am I leaving my family behind? I'm going there to put my life on the line. And don't get me wrong, right? I loved it. But it started eating at me more and more throughout the years. My last deployment was in 2015, but it was like, why? No one cares. No one cares. And I was so wrong about that. When I ended up losing the leg, there was so much outpouring generosity, love, and support from people I'd never met. People coming in my room at Walter Reed when I went down to Texas, companies, and very quiet, large companies, small, just business owners. Hey, what do you need? I got a private jet. If you want to go home, I'll fly you and your family home in a private jet. You don't have to worry about anything. here's an apartment for you and your family in DC or down in Texas where you don't worry about having to sell your house or anything. We got everything taken care of for you. And so, unlike our Vietnam War veterans, we have it so good. And I really do think the media is not going to tell people about it. The good that's out there, and America, in my opinion, really does care. If you believe everything and then you see the media, at least from my experience, you're going to think that they don't care. But I think the heart of America still does care.
I agree. And I think the plot of the play, I'm not giving anything away here, but if folks are thinking about watching it this Memorial Day, it is about, and you guys will love this, it is about a team sergeant. It's about an E8 NCO, because I just felt like there's not really any quality stories about Army NCOs out there, and I wanted there to be, and I wanted it to be based on these composite characters that I had served with, these guys that were just bigger than life. And but in the first scene, Danny is killed. Danny Patton is his name. He's killed in the first scene, and he wants to ascend to Valhalla. He wants to ascend to the warrior resting place of Valhalla and just know peace. But he can't ascend, and he's holding on to something. And so his best buddy, Kenny, comes down from Valhalla, who was killed on 9/11 in the Pentagon, who was based on my Ranger buddy who was killed. And two other operators come down from Valhalla, and their specialty as operators from Valhalla is they are shapeshifters. They become the people in Danny's life that made his heart pump the most blood. And they basically take Danny back through his life from the time he went to selection, through the Q course, through meeting his wife, getting on his first team, having his child, 9/11, deployment 1, deployment 2, deployment 4, deployment 7. And you go with him all the way through until you finally figure out what it is that he's holding on to. And he lets go. But the idea here is that in doing so, the audience has to go for the ride.
Yep.
The audience, that's the power of storytelling, is narrative transportation. Regardless of whether you served or not, whether you're a family member or not, you go on that ride with Danny and those operators. And I think it gets to kind of what you were talking about, Jake, is opening that aperture and helping people understand that in a way that, it's not us bashing them over the head with it. But there's one scene where you talked about how it seems like sometimes the civilian population doesn't care. At the very end of the play, Danny says to his wife, Lynn, he's furious that his son Caden's joining the military. He says, when your dad and my dad came home from Vietnam, they threw dog crap at him. And now they thank me for my service. And then they walk out the front door and bash their neighbor over their head with an axe handle. How long do you think it's going to be before these dingy yellow ribbons turn back into dog crap? Except this time they're throwing it at our boy. And, you could never have a conversation with the American people like that unless you did it in story.
Yeah.
And that's what it's really about. It's raw, unapologetic warrior storytelling, man. Like you just go for the ride.
Wow. Sounds like it's going to be a heavy and great roller coaster ride of a film.
Thanks. Yeah.
So where can people find it? Where can we watch it, and where can they find it at?
So if you go to lastoutfilm.com, you can literally click that button and you'll get all the information. It's going to be a limited release, because here's what we're doing. It's a limited release on Memorial Day, because we're not even done editing this thing yet. But we just thought, man, I'm tired of seeing Memorial Days roll by where everybody's just divided. We're not, this could be a great way to let our Gold Stars know we love them. So we're just pulling up. I'm coming to brag. You may know Command Sergeant Major Brian Knight. He's bringing me up there, and he's a former 82nd guy, but we're going to host a Gold Star watch party. But on Memorial Day weekend, we're just putting it out there, just where it is in the editing process. It's pretty close, and we just want people to watch it. But then the ultimate goal is for it to be nationally streamed on 9/11 as we come out of Afghanistan for the last time. So lastoutfilm.com. Anybody can watch it, and hopefully, get a better sense of the sacrifice that's been made.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing it. Thank you. Thanks for kind of putting yourself out there and telling that story. I think that's awesome.
I mean, that's like going back to your question, Jake, about the acting. Like, you know, that was the hardest part. Was it was really just taking the armor off and allowing yourself to give an insight into that world that you don't have any protection from. You're just exposed.
And I think that's a great point. You know, the American people are, or maybe it's a personal thing, and I used to struggle with this quite a bit. I'm a Green Beret, I'm a special operator, right? So I have to look a certain way, I have to act a certain way. I think law enforcement and first responders have to do the same thing, right? Almost be robotic, right? I can't have feelings, and I can't. You really have time to process. You know, every teammate I ever lost, you're still in a gunfight. You know, you're carrying their body or whatever. You know, you're pulling security. You're doing everything. You load them up in the helicopter, and guess what? 10 seconds later, you're back doing whatever you have to do. You go back to your base. So you send the chaplain out or some psych out, and they want to talk to you. No one really wants to talk. At least my team, you know, is like, okay, great, get the hell out of here. Just let us be a team. And for us, you know, what we always wanted was what we call Green Beret justice. Let us get back out there. Let us do stuff. That's how we would heal. And then I remember as I went through all my amputations and all the surgeries for like almost 3 years, 2.5+ years, that emergency brake was hit and I almost crashed through the windshield. That's what it felt like of my purpose. You know, this is what I did. This is what I love. This was my purpose. And we had to see a shrink every once in a while. Being an amputee at the military hospitals, which most shrinks I absolutely hate and despise, but that's just me. And so I had some really, really good ones that just kind of broke through that armor. And one actually said, "Hey, man, take the Superman logo off your chest and just breathe and just feel." And that's hard. I think that's hard for a lot of guys, you know, who've been to combat, done a lot of great work, to actually sit down and feel. And I think when you start having those emotions, that is where we don't know how to deal with it, right?
Well, first responders, military, especially in the elite units, you become so good at compartmentalizing everything that you just tuck everything away in the back corner and you don't pay attention to it and you drive on with the mission. And we're never really taught how to process it. And I think that's why we're seeing so much mental health issues coming to light after the war and after people come back.
And the effects on the family.
And not only are they losing their sense of purpose, but they don't know how to process what to do next and what they saw and did. So I mean, not everybody, obviously, but
yeah. And you're right. And this isn't some new age touchy-feely kind of thing. Like, you know, what I said earlier was, and, you know, I am a professional storyteller. Like, that's my thing. I study storytelling. I use storytelling in the real world, and it's the oldest form of communication that there is. Yeah. And what we know, I mean, through very recent neuroscience, is that humans are meaning-seeking, emotional story animals. Like, that's who we are. That's how we actually got to the top of the food chain. Story is it's a weapon. You know, story allows you to accelerate knowledge through emotional connection. So in other words, like I can learn about a tactic or a best practice through narrative in a way as if I lived it. I can actually feel what the experience was from that other team member, as if I were there. And so story is this powerful thing. Well, it's also powerful for coming home, you know, in terms of dissipating that energy that, you know, because trauma in many cases is stuck in a loop, and we need to dissipate that. The brain is actually a storytelling organ. So that's really what we're doing more than anything else, is we are simply leveraging the greatest tool that God gave us for coming home, which is story. And just tapping into that at a primal way. When you watch the film, you'll see, like, we have 8 actors blocks, those wooden blocks, a wall of honor, and some sound effects and some costumes. Everything else is storytelling, but we'll take you for the ride, man. It literally toggles back and forth between Danny's living room and his fire base in Afghanistan. And by the time we get you to the end of the film, just like it was when we were in the war, you're not sure which one you're in.
Yeah. Awesome. I can't wait to watch it. Where can people find you on social media?
Yeah, our website, our nonprofit website, the best way to go right now is just lastoutfilm.com.
Okay.
Also rooftopleadership.com, where I teach a lot of human connection and storytelling and stuff like that in the for-profit world. So if anybody's interested there, Rooftop Leader on Facebook, Instagram, that kind of thing.
Okay. All right. I'll add to, so I want to say thank you so much for coming on to our Memorial Day special. I think it was kind of a deep, good conversation, and I'm really looking forward to watching this. I think it's going to be good for a lot of people to see. I'm going to definitely, I can't wait to watch it. Thank you very much for coming on.
I appreciate it, Will. And thanks for everything you've done, man. And for what you guys are doing here. I mean, this is just a great example of leadership in action and taking those struggles and scars from the battlefield and putting it into work, to heal this country and lead, man. I'm proud of you guys. I really am. And it's so cool to see what you're building. It's humbling to see.
Well, thank you. Thanks for jumping on, Scott. And thanks for our listeners and viewers out there. Go check out lastoutfilm.com. And Memorial Day weekend, they can stream it through the website.
And Jake, hey, I'm counting on you, man. Let me know how I do as a team sergeant. I'm kind of nervous. You watching, man. You
already failed, man. I mean, I think it's admirable that an officer finally wants to admit that he's always wanted to be an NCO. That's the first step. So
we're there.
I'll check it out next weekend. And
Thank you.
We'll be in touch, Scott. Thank you.
All right. We'll see you around.
All right. Thanks. See you guys next week.